December 24th, 1988, location, remote snowy woods of Vermont. 4 friends made a plan together. Peter, who is courageous and a skilled leader. Emily, a sensitive and sympathetic girl and Peter's girlfriend. Mark, Joe's a sarcastic but loyal boy and likes dark humor. Jimmy, who is a timid girl and Mark's girlfriend. Peter planned the perfect Christmas celebration. A secluded cabin deep in the woods, surrounded by snow and tranquility. It was going to be a romantic time together for 2 couples, away from the hustle and bustle of the city and prying eyes. The cabin was a last-minute find online, touted as a charming vintage Christmas retreat. As they drove through the dense forest, Emily noticed how the trees were closing in on them. "It's so pretty, but it feels so isolated," she murmured, taking Peter's arm. "That's it." Peter laughed and said, "No worries, no phone calls, just you, me, and the magic of Christmas." The cabin stood on the shore of a frozen lake, its wooden structure covered in snowflakes. Inside it was cozy but eerily quiet. The only decorations it had were a dusty Christmas tree and a stack of old carol sheets on the fireplace. Mark picked up a sheet and smiled and said, "Wow, these are ancient. Look at this last remaining carol, the last carol. Never heard it." Jimmy shrugged and said, "Maybe it's a local song. Let's not mess it up." That evening, with the fire crackling and everyone drinking hot cocoa, Peter suggested they sing carols. "It's Christmas Eve. Let's get festive." Emily chose Silent Night, her favorite song. As they sang, the cabin began to get colder. Jimmy shivered and said, "Has anyone else felt anything spooky like that?" Mark laughed. "It's just your hallucinations, or maybe the ghost of Christmas past." Peter took out the last carol sheet and said, "Let's try this. It's unique." As they sang, the air grew heavy. The lyrics were disturbing. "Draw near and sing with joy on this night of mystery. The snow will fall and the winds will howl. Call the spirits with this promise." The candles flickered violently and the fire dimmed. Outside, the wind grew louder, howling like a mournful lament. Emily's voice trembled, and she said, "Peter, stop. I don't feel right." But Peter was curious and said, "It's just a song. Don't be so filmy." At midnight, when everyone was getting ready for bed, a soft knock echoed in the cabin. "Who could be out here?" Jimmy said in a soft voice. Peter opened the door, but there was no one there. Only a small package wrapped in paper lay on the porch. Emily was frightened and said, "Don't open it." Mark opened the package. Inside was a broken antique music box. It began to play the last carol by itself, whose mesmerizing melody filled the cabin with a terrifying feeling. Jimmy screamed loudly as he saw a scary shadow near the window. A thin woman in a tattered red cloak. Her eyes glowed like embers, and her mouth was stretched in a strange smile. The lights flickered and went out, and the horrifying scene of horror began. In the darkness, the woman held a cloak of fire and a knife in her hand. The carolers sang in horrified voices, "Draw near and sing with joy on this night of mystery." Peter lit a lantern, but the woman was gone. The group huddled together and shivered. Emily began to cry and said, "We have to leave." Peter took his car keys and tried to start the car, but the car wouldn't start. Mark tried to call for help, but there was no signal. The cabin grew even colder, and the windows began to freeze. Strange whispers echoed, becoming louder and more menacing. Jimmy saw shadows moving on the walls, but this was a very terrifying sight. She screamed loudly. Desperate, everyone ran outside in fear, but all 4 found themselves surrounded by a wall of ice. And now suddenly the scary woman appeared again, this time appearing on the frozen lake. She beckoned to them with a skeletal hand. Peter, now angrily, stepped forward and said loudly, "What do you want?" "You sang carols." "Now you'll pay," came the reply. The voice was icy and hollow. Mark gasped. "You sound like a madwoman here." The woman's smile widened unnaturally. She raised her arms and the lake broke apart, revealing black, swirling water. Ghostly hands emerged, clawing at the ice. Everyone tried to escape, but the ice was too deep. Jimmy fell down and screamed. Ice hands pulled him under. Save me. Mark leapt to save him. Emily clung to Peter and cried, We have to stop him. Peter remembered the music box. He ran to the cabin, Emily close behind him. The woman followed them both with a terrifying laugh, her laughter echoing like 1,000 voices. Inside, Peter smashed the music box to pieces. The woman let out a deafening scream, and his form disintegrated into a cloud of ash. The lake froze again, and whispers stopped. But it wasn't over. Emily pointed to the carol sheet, which now had new lyrics written in blood. Break the box, but not the curse. Next year it'll be worse. The next day, when the sun rose, the cabin was empty. Local authorities found no trace of Peter, Emily, Mark, or Jimmy. But every Christmas Eve, the lake ice breaks, and the haunting melody of the last carol plays through the woods, waiting for its next victim.